Hi there, I'm Lilia Lewis, and welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Now, today our lesson is titled Halfway Isn't Good Enough. Now, that means in all of our relationships, not just some of the things we do, but pretty much all the things we do, because we're always making commitments. And that could be to family, it could be to friends, even strangers. But you know what? Especially our commitments we make to God. Now, think about yourself. Are you sincere in your commitments to whomever you make them? Do you keep your word? Or are you half stepping? Now, maybe you fulfilled some of what you said, part of it or most of it or whatever you committed to, and maybe you just did enough to say, well, at least I did do this, or at least I did do that. But that's half stepping, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And that could work for you in many instances, with some people. Some people don't mind. But what about the commitments we make to God? I mean, sure, it's easy to pray and, ask God for blessings and favor and tell him all your requests. We say, yeah, tell him all your requests. But when he tells you what's required, that's the hard part, because a lot of times, oh Lord, if you just do this one thing, I promise I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that, and so forth and so on. You know how that goes. But once he tells you what is required, even though you agree to it, and I'll do that, I'll do that, but you know, a lot of times we don't always complete what we said. Complete and all are two different things. We don't always completely do everything he says to do. Sometimes we do what's easiest or what we can get away with, but what we might think, well, this is just a little bit off. I did most of it, but most of it isn't what's the point. The point is being committed to what you say you're going to do. Now, we're going to start off in First Samuel. I'm going to go to chapter 15 because this is going to be an example of even back then, all the chaos and confusion. We live in a chaotic world today, but let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 15, because this is actually the prophet Samuel, and he's talking to King Saul, because Samuel is telling King Saul what God had said to him. Now let's look at verse 3, because it says, God said, now go and smite the people of Amalek. It says, utterly destroy all that they have and spare nothing and nobody. It says, not man, woman, child, suckling, babies. It doesn't matter. No sheep, no camel, no donkeys, no nothing. Kill everything that lives in Amalek. That's what Samuel was telling Paul that God said for him to do. And they did. They did. But the point was, they spared, meaning did not kill, the king. It was King Agag. They didn't kill the king. They killed all the people, most of the sheep, they killed everything that wasn't good, but they kept the king alive, and they kept all the best of the sheep and the lambs and the oxen and all that stuff. They kept all the good stuff and all the valuable stuff. Well, but that wasn't what God said to do. And Saul, he did all that, but he kept the good stuff. But then there came another word from the Lord unto Samuel. In verse 11, God's talking to Samuel again, and he's saying how he himself, God, he said, I repenteth me. I repenteth I'm regretting what I did. I regret that I have set Saul to be king. That's what it says in verse 11. For he hath turned back from following me and have not performed my commandments. And this made Samuel very sad and very upset. And he sent Samuel back to Saul to tell him so. And in verse 13, what does it say? It says, Samuel came to Saul again, and Saul looks at Samuel and he's greeting him and he's saying, oh, blessed be thou of the Lord. I have performed the commandments of the Lord. And Samuel looks around and he says, well, why am I hearing sheep? Why do I hear the bleating of sheep? Why do I see the oxen over there? And what does Saul say? He says, oh, well, that was because the people wanted to keep the oxen for sacrifice to the Lord thy God. But we destroyed everybody else. But then, that's not what God said do. God didn't ask for no sacrifices. So Samuel just said, well, I'll tell the Lord what you said. I mean, all I can do is tell you what he said. And now let's look at verse 17, because Samuel prayed about it because he didn't know what to do. But in verse 17, it says, in Samuel, he said to Saul, he said, well, when you were little in your own eyes, that was when God made you head of the tribes of Israel. That was when the Lord anointed you as king. And the Lord sent thee on a journey, and he said, destroy the sinners of all the Amalekites. That's what he told you to do. And he said, he didn't tell you to leave anything or anybody. And Saul, he's still trying to plead his case. He's saying, yeah, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and I did go where he told me to go. And well, we did bring the king back, but we killed everybody else. And it was the people. The people, they wanted all the good stuff because they wanted to have it for an offering and a sacrifice to the Lord. And Samuel said, well, do you think the Lord has a greater delight in burnt offering and sacrifices than he does in you obeying his voice and doing what he said to do? Do you think he preferred that? And he said, rebellion is an act of a sin. Stubbornness, iniquity, idolatry, all the things that they were doing. But you've rejected the word of the Lord, and now he has also rejected you from being king. You can't half step on the Lord. And Saul, he's getting nervous. He says, well, I know I've sinned. I've transgressed the commandments of the Lord and of the word. Well, I did it because I feared the people. And I obeyed their voice. And that's where so many of us make a mistake. Listening to what somebody else is saying, following the crowd, knowing you're wrong, but doing it anyway. But he's begging now. He says, I pray thee, pardon my sin and turn again with me that I can worship the Lord. But you know what? Half stepping don't make it. When God says do it, you got to do it all the way. And Samuel said, well, I will not turn back with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord now has rejected you from being king over Israel. God gives you chances. He gives you many, many chances. But when you act like you want to do it your way, that angers God. That's when his wrath comes out. You can't half step with God. I don't care who you are, what you're doing, what you think you can get away with. You cannot half step with God. And that's why it's so important, to read the word, to understand the importance of obeying, not just reading it. Anybody can read it. The point is to obey it. And the purpose of reading the word is to encourage you, to push you, to urge you on. And if need be, it says to rebuke or reprove. So that means to rebuke. Well, that means you're disapproving. You're going to get reprimanded. And to reprove means to scold. But you need all these pieces when you read. You need to be encouraged. You need to be warned of what not to do. But you need to be urged to go forward. But you need all these components so that you're balanced in your thinking. Now let's look at 2 Timothy chapter 4. Let's go there. 2 Timothy chapter 4. Now let's see what that says. All right, where we at? 4. And we're going to start in verse 2. Because this is talking to us as well. And it says, preach the word, be instant in season or out of season. And that's simply, and to preach doesn't mean you have to literally preach. It simply means how your actions are a matter of preaching. You know what I mean? People look at what you do, but you got to do it all the time. You can't do it sometimes. It says in season and out of season. And if it's wrong, you don't do it. And you have to do it with long suffering and doctrine. That means take the good with the bad, but follow the word. The doctrine is the word. The doctrine is the word. Because the time will come when people will not endure the sound of the doctrine. And that we're living in that right now. People don't care about what the word says. People don't care about what's doing right or wrong, but they're in their own lust. That means their own desires, whatever they want to do. They want to do it their way. Now they heap themselves teachers. Now they know everything. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. Listen to what I'm saying. And they turn their ears totally away from truth. This is truth. Not what they're saying out there, not what they're conjuring up. They're turned onto fables. That means you're listening to anything and everything that's out there. It says, but watch thou in all things, endure affliction. That means hard times. Just get through it, pray through it, do whatever it has to do, whatever you have to do to get through the hard times. Now, and that takes us back to then Moses and the people in the desert. I mean, they were getting used to Moses praying and them getting everything they want, and it was getting kind of good to them. They were satisfied. But because they could see, oh, well, Moses, just get him. Once he prays, we'll be okay. So they were getting comfortable. It was convenient. But look at what happens when it's not convenient. That's when they began complaining. That's when they began blaming Moses, blaming God for all their hardships. That's why they stayed in the desert for 40 years instead of 11 days. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. Let's see where we at. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Let's look at verse 5. And it says, many of the people of God were making him very displeased because they were now doing what they felt like doing because things were getting too hard for them. Because that it says God was displeased because they were getting overthrown, as they said, in the wilderness. And these are the things that they encountered that we shouldn't be doing. We should not lust after things that are evil, meaning desire things. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I got to have more money. I know I can do. That's lusting. Anything you got to have, you're lusting after. If it's not God, it's a sin. You don't want to be an idolater. Well, they were worshiping, made that idol out there on the desert, and they were worshiping the devil and the desert, or the idol. And what? They were drinking and eating all night, and then they rose up to play and have parties and all that stuff, commit fornication. Some of them did that. Some of them did that, and they were destroyed of serpents. And some of them thought that's when they started murmuring and complaining, and a lot of them did that, and they were destroyed by the destroyer. Now, that's explaining how we complain today in a different way about totally different things. But stupid little stuff, we be whining and complaining. If it's too hot, we complain. If it's too cold, we complain. When the electric, and you know this happens to us all the time. Well, not all the time, but a lot of times our electric went out, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. So now you don't have no TV, no radio, no iPad, no nothing, no air conditioning. My whole system went down when we had the heat wave. I had to hurry up and call somebody and come in and get a new heater and get a whole new system. And it was a mess. But I didn't complain because I could get a new system. But when you get stuck in those situations, it's like, oh man, I can't even do this and I can't even do that. And we're never satisfied. But we got to constantly remind ourselves not to complain, even in little things. And no electric, we know it's not going to last forever. It's just an inconvenience. Get over it. Number one, you might as well, because you sure can't do nothing about it. And that's where we make our mistake anyway, because the little things a lot of times become big things. Then you start focusing on that more and more instead of, that just throws you completely out of sync. So we need to check in with God every once in a while and just kind of ask him, am I still on track? Am I doing your will? Or is there something that you need to let me know that I'm missing? Because I have that issue a lot myself. And that's why we have a conscience. That's what your conscience is. That gut feeling you have down in there that says, something isn't right. Even if you can't figure it out, you can feel it, And once you get it, it's like now it's been revealed to you. So now you're in the revelation stage, and now that you see what it is, this is when you start doing something about it. And then my next question is, have you ever prayed for something in desperation? Oh, Lord, if you just do this, if I could just have that, everything would be fine. But in the meantime, while you're saying all that, do you ever think about what you'd have to give up to get what you think you want. Now, let's go to what is this? Oh wait, I wanted to go back a minute because it was saying in Philippians 4:6. It says, "Be careful for everything. Don't worry about nothing. Be careful for nothing." That means don't be worrying about this, that, and the other. But in everything by prayer and supplication. And supplication means to ask God for things humbly from your heart, not just because I want it. And with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known. And thanksgiving is sometimes something we forget. We forget half the time to be thankful for what or even who we have in our lives because we're too busy asking for more. And I learned that a long time ago. Now, and I'm a classic example of that because a lot of times, sometimes my daughter, she'll go out and she'll come back with all this stuff from the market. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, girl. What would I do without you? And she just looks over at me and she just smiles and she says, be hungry. And we laugh. She's true. It's true, but we laugh because I'm thankful for her and all my children. But she's right here, in the right around me. So I kind of depend on her. I try not to, but she's there whenever I need her. So the point is to just be grateful for who and what you have. You know, and I'm going to ask you now, who have you thanked lately? Yeah, I just thanked her today again. But that's just part of my makeup now. It's like, oh, what would I do without you? And I get the same answer. Be hungry. But so many things we do take for granted. Food is one of them, our job, our house, the roof over your head, clean water to drink. How many countries, you know how many people in different countries that would be thanking God every day for the stuff we take for granted? What have you done for somebody lately? I know God works in mysterious ways, and just being kind to someone, that could lead to something greater than you ever imagined. And sometimes we don't even know why we do things. But I think maybe it's just God prompting you in preparation for something far bigger. So, I mean, we don't always know what God wants us to do, but as long as we keep trying, I mean, when the time is right, God will show us the way. He'll give us a sign and give us also always what we need. So don't be afraid to be wrong. So what if you're wrong? Because as long as your heart is right, God can call on you to do anything. Even whether you think you can do it or not, that's irrelevant. But that's called stepping out in faith. Now, I just want to go over right quick 1 Corinthians verse 27. It says, God has chosen the foolish of the world to confound the wise. And confound means to knock out the weak, the wise, I meant to say, because he gives knowledge and wisdom to anybody. So here it's saying he has chosen the foolish of the world to knock out the wise, and he's chosen the weak of the world to knock out those which are mighty. So it's just simply saying whoever thinks they're so great without him or in their own way, they're sadly mistaken. And we often wonder a lot of times how you ever think of how in the world did I ever do that? I do, because success in overcoming any obstacle, and then you look back. I mean, I used to work 2 jobs, sometimes 3 for years just to keep my head above water. And even now, I sometimes amaze myself because I look back at that and I said, Lord have mercy. How did I ever do that? How do you get up in the morning, send your kids to school, go to a part-time job, come back home, give them their lunch? Back then, they would come home for lunch. And then I would be there to give them their lunch. They'd go back to school. I'd go to my other part-time job. Then they'd come home. Then I'd go to my full-time job from midnight to 8. That was my agenda. For years, I did that. And I, even to this day, I just look back and wonder, how in the world did I do that for so long? Nobody but God. I never got sick. I never had time off. I worked as many hours as I could. But one thing for sure is you've got to be willing to let God use you. And can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to try things, because you're never really a failure unless you just don't try anymore. And there's a song that back in the day, it was like, you light up my life. Well, even today, you too can light up somebody's life with something as simple as a hello, a smile, a nod. How you doing? You don't know what these people need. People like attention. They need it. And God does so much for us, But one of our biggest problems is we forget. We forget. And in Hebrews, it tells us about God's power. It tells us about his wisdom. It tells us about the truth. He gives us wisdom. That's where we get our wisdom from reading his word. That's the whole point of reading his word. And his word, that helps us to see what really matters. We place so much emphasis on things that don't even matter. And so many times we worry about things that never come to pass, never even happen. So you've wasted all that time on worrying or thinking about stuff that doesn't matter, doesn't count, doesn't come to pass. And even half the stuff we think about, we don't even have control over. We can't change it. So we spend time worrying about, oh, it's too hot, it's too cold. We were just talking about that earlier, how we just worry about stuff that we can't control. When the electric goes out, we can't control it. When the snow comes, we can't control it. And we complain religiously every year. Same thing, same complaint. I know God be looking down saying, oh, well, I guess they're getting ready to start complaining because here comes a snowstorm or here comes a heat wave. Well, get over it. That's all I can tell you. Just get over it. Because if you can't change it, you're wasting your time. So that being said, I want you to think about what we talked about today and make sure you're not half-stepping, because you may think you're getting over, and you may get over on some of your friends and people you don't know and make commitments and then do half. That may work in some instances, like we said before, but don't get it wrong. There's no way you can, half step with God. So if you get nothing out of today's lesson, just remember today's title and know that halfway is never good enough. And until next week, I'm Lelia Lewis. Thanks for joining me.